Hi, I'm Jason Leahy, Executive Director of the Illinois Principals Association. Thanks for joining us for this IPA talk, and with me here today, it's a pleasure to have Dr. PJ Capozzi. PJ, thanks for joining me for this IPA talk.
Very excited about it. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I want to talk about a few things. PJ, written a book. Obviously, want to spend a little bit of time with that. But first, Superintendent Meridian 223. I know you're author, speaker, trainer, doing a variety of things. One of those is for us. I want to mention that as well, but thought to give you a quick opportunity to maybe give a shout out to your kids if they're watching this thing, because I know, like me, you have a relatively large family, though you do them in pairs, it seems like, right? Which we never did.
Not necessarily intentionally, but...
Right. So tell us about your family just a little bit and about your background.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm married, 4 children, 10, 11, and twin 3-year-olds. So we kind of do them in chunks. So it's a very interesting combination at home between the extraordinarily active, every Park District sport possible with the 10 and 11-year-olds, and then the 3-year-olds, making life very interesting, but also very, very enjoyable. Thank goodness I'm married to a saint that takes care of most of that for me, that I get to enjoy all the fun parts of, but not necessarily exhibit all the burdens that come with it.
Right. Well, you're like me. You kicked beyond your coverage then, right?
Well, it didn't take much, but I far exceeded what I deserve.
Very good. Superintendent Meridian 223. Want to talk a little bit about the district?
Yes, extremely proud of the district. So I grew up in the suburbs, then lived in the city, taught in the city. So I never thought I'd be superintendent of a small town rural district. Meridian's been incredibly welcoming to me and my family. And it's shown me kind of everything that's wonderful about raising kids in small towns, and being able to help raise their kids in small towns as a result. So incredible community support. About 1,700 students, 4 buildings, award-winning district on lots of different levels. Really proud that last year, particularly at our high school, we received national recognition for our academic achievement, but we also were one of 20 schools nationwide to win recognition for how we treat in comfort and try to work with the whole student as well. So kind of being able to pair those two together, exceptionally proud of the work that we're doing.
Excellent. Well, that's terrific. Also, appreciate you doing the work that you do with us. I know that you've been an online academy presenter, regular academy presenter, doing those kinds of things, and also helping us launch our Launching School Leader Network this year for brand new school leaders. So appreciate that. How's that experience been going?
It's been incredible. So I think that one of the things that being able to travel kind of around the country that people that are in Illinois don't realize, and in Illinois we like to bash our education system and some of the powers that be, is that our professional organizations are outstanding. And so what IPA is doing with Launching New Leaders is really kind of pairing new leaders that are going through with informal mentors that are going to carry with them through a cohort model, and really try to touch all the right tones at the right time about the struggles that new leaders in the position will face. And I can say from my experience that I've gone through 2 battles of cancer and a divorce, and none of that was as hard as my first year as a principal. and I mean that sincerely. So they need support, and the fact that the association is systematically trying to devise a way to provide them consistent faces and support, I think is brilliant, and I'm just really proud to be a part of it.
Well, appreciate your leadership with that and the work that you're doing with Don Anderson, who's leading that effort for IPA, and the whole team of individuals. Look forward to seeing what comes out of that. But let's get into one of the reasons that you're here. The primary reason you're here is to talk about your most recent book that you've written, Making Evaluation Meaningful. So PJ, you and I were talking just briefly before we got on camera here a little bit about the fact that obviously when you think about evaluation, things like Danielson, Marzano, those frameworks come to mind. Been a lot of writing, a lot of study related to evaluation. But obviously with you writing this book, you felt a need that there's something that's missing as part of the overall conversation where evaluation is concerned. So, what motivated you to write this? Why did you feel like it needed to be done?
Yeah, so when I sit down to write, or I think when any educational author sits down to write, they look at one of 2 things. One is, where's there a gap in the market that I can exploit and make revenue, make a name for myself? Or 2, what is like speaking to you in your soul? And that's where the evaluation process sits for me. And as I have spoken to lots of different districts, and the experience I typically have is when the superintendents or the cabinet level people go away, and I get to talk to the principals, and I say, "Tell me, is this working? Does this mean anything?" And they tell me no. And then I work with the teachers, and I say, "When's the last time you had an evaluation that really meant something for you?" And about 10% of the teachers will tell me at some point an evaluation meant something to them. And so at that point, we're spending hundreds of hours individually, thousands of hours as districts pouring into this process, time, energy, effort, a stress-inducing process that is typically damaging to cultures, and it's not doing its job, right? It's not systematically improving teacher performance, which is then going to better serve our kids. And so seeing that, then I felt compelled to try to put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard and try to articulate some of the things that I think are missing in the process that are keeping it from being as effective as it could be.
Yeah. So when when you think about this, the hypothesis of making evaluation meaningful, PJ, I mean, what's it really take? What's it take for that to be a meaningful process? So we're not dealing with just the tail wagging the dog here, and it's all about the compliance. Because when you think about big initiatives, big reforms like evaluation has been over the last 5 to 10 years or so, it feels like that the process has been the end rather than the means to an end. So what are you trying to do here to make it a meaningful process?
I'm just trying to shine light and then provide kind of tangible, actionable strategies on the things that we can do differently as humans. Mm-hmm. So the system is designed, and it's in some states it's rigid, other places it's not. Our state's fairly cumbersome and rigid. And then the frameworks exist, right? So and you know this for a decade, I love Charlotte Danielson's framework. And Marzano's is great too. So this is not a condemnation of the framework or saying this is Kaposi's idea on it's about how to work within those frameworks to then improve our practice as educational leaders so that we better serve our teachers. And so one of the things that, the key to all of this is relationships. And so I think there's kind of relationships on different levels, right? So there's the relationship between the principal and the teacher. So I think that's probably paramount. But there's also the relationship that the principal has with their own sense of self and confidence in their mastery of pedagogy, instruction, and curriculum. So once we can kind of pair those things and give some actionable strategies, I think that we can move the conversation and transform the process into something that is a large, expensive, resource-hungry hoop into something that actually helps teachers grow.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think about with evaluation, it feels like we need to be moving towards, PJ, so that we get ourselves out of the compliance mode, is this concept of capacity building, right? That's something that we've started to study as an association. I know you've got some awareness with our school leader paradigm, where we're trying to look at the intelligences of leadership, personal, social systems. Within that social intelligence, we speak to the importance of capacity building. I think standards in general, like the new professional school education leader standards, are starting to look more specifically at that. So, when you think about making evaluation meaningful, how can we make that process more of a capacity building experience rather than just a compliance and really an arduous process?
So I think number one thing is mindset. And so the way that I try to frame it for principals to kind of reshape how they approach the entire process is this. If you were working with a teacher and a student and you were looking at their midterm report, and assessment 1 was a D, and assessment 2 was a D, and assessment 3 was a D, and assessment 4 was a D, you would say to the teacher, what are you doing to help support this kid? Why aren't they taking the necessary steps to move forward? But when we work with teachers, if a teacher is barely proficient and barely proficient and barely proficient, oftentimes as school leaders, we don't look in the mirror and say, what am I doing to grow that teacher? And so that mutual ownership of professional growth and mutual ownership of fulfilling the capacity and the mindset flip to see teachers for greater than they are. So this is another thing that drives me crazy about schools. Every time we talk to a kid, we talk about the potential that we see in them. Every time we're having the discipline conversation, we're saying, Johnny, don't you know how great you can be? But we have a tendency to see adults for exactly where they are. And we have a really hard time. We set ceilings on their potential. So for me, once that mindset shift occurs, then the rest of the evaluation process flows. But that's very abstract, and that's mental work that the principals have to do. So that's part of what the book is about too. So it's not just these tangible, actionable strategies, which a lot of books are now, right? So these are cookie cutter, implement this. There's parts of that, but also hopefully it speaks to the hearts and the minds so that people can change some of their thoughts so that therefore they can change their behaviors.
Well, because you're encouraging, challenging people to do some things that are pretty tough, right? I mean, you're looking to have folks have difficult conversations with teachers about their practice, and I think that, as we've had these years-long conversations around teacher evaluation, we know that that's always kind of been the elephant in the room. That ultimately, with some individuals, to encourage them along, we have to point out maybe those areas that maybe they're not as proficient in, right?
Absolutely, and I think that takes two things. One is the confidence that you actually can add value. So I use that term a lot. If I believe I can add value to a teacher, then I have found that administrators are much more willing to engage in the conversation. Two is just a very real conversation that whenever I avoid a difficult conversation or a meaningful conversation or whatever, critical, crucial, whatever adjective you want to throw in front of it, and whichever book you want to read, the only person that wins is me. Right. So the teacher doesn't win because we've forfeited them the opportunity to grow. And if the teacher's not growing, then we're doing a disservice to our kids. So having that very real conversation of every time that, it's Friday, I know I should engage, but we're going to let this one pass, the only person that serves is ourselves. And people don't like calling themselves selfish. And so hopefully with that mindset, they can move forward and change some of their practice.
Well, you talk about the mindset, maybe taking the mindset of knowing that they're advocating on behalf of the kids might help with that, right?
Absolutely. Everything boils down to that, right? I mean, so it sounds generic and cliche and it's this platitude. Literally everything we do comes down to kids. And so if one of the things when you study, other industries that really engages employees is that, when you have a true meaningful purpose, it helps to engage employees. We have the best, most meaningful purpose that you can't create something as meaningful as trying to impact the lives of kids and change the trajectory of lives. And so I think that's inspiring and to remind people of that. But I think the really cool part is that when school leaders realize that they can change the trajectory of an adult's life through the conversations and work they're doing, that's when the bug will get you. And that's when evaluation is no longer a hoop. That's when those tough conversations are no longer a task. That's when you really believe you're making a difference and you can really move forward and I think spread your wings and fly as an educational leader.
So last question I've got for you, PJ, is could you give us a tangible example of a school district that you feel like is doing it well or is on a path to doing it well? Because you've seen a lot. You're out there, you're talking with districts about these things. So who's doing a good job?
Lots of individual evaluators are doing an excellent job. Right. When I look at district and systemic wide, I just got back from a district in Wyoming, Goshen County, and they have completely blown up their system in ways that we can't do because of some cumbersome legislature in Illinois. But they have completely owned their system. So they're removing 19 of the 22 components of Danielson, saying we believe in 3B, 3C, and 3D. In year two, after a tenured teacher goes through the evaluation process, we're going to knock out some action research so that people can really learn about their practice and learn about kids. And then year three, we're going to do a growth plan based on what we've learned from year one and year two. Now that's a real meaningful process. Oh, yeah. Whether it works or not, it's still better than what most of us are doing because there's meat to it, there's investment. It was collaboratively built by teachers and administrators, and they're excited about the evaluation process. That's not something I can say for most districts I work with.
Right. So it seems to me they're building a system where the system will support ongoing dialogue between the school leaders and the teachers about what's really going on in the classroom. Not necessarily about the process of evaluation, but about the instructional process of what's happening with kids.
Absolutely. And without trying to sound like a commercial, they found a way to make evaluation meaningful.
Right. Awesome. That's great. So PJ, just tell us, you're out there on Twitter a lot. I follow you out there. Where can we find you online?
So www.pjcapozzi.com is kind of the warehouse for everything. Okay. One of the best tools that kind of came from this book is that if you are in search of suggestions for improvement that are tangible, on the website you can find, hey, I'm looking for some suggestions on how to help someone with questioning. There's a bunch of listed suggestions and then resources to links outside of me that you can share with teachers. So that's there. And then on Twitter and Instagram, you can find me at MCUSD-SOUP. I'm one of the ones that does SOUP, S-U-P-E. I know lots of people do S-U-P-T. I don't get that. But so I am MCUSD-SOUP, S-U-P-E.
SUPT, right? Right? That's how that is? Yeah, so S-U-P-E, correct? Yes. Right, very good. So PJ, thanks for spending a few minutes here with me on this IPA talk.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
My pleasure. Appreciate having Dr. PJ Capozzi talk with me a little bit about his book. And to find out more information about making evaluation meaningful, you can click on a link here in the description of this video and we can send you out and you can learn more about that. As always, if there's anything that IPA can do for you, don't hesitate to give us a call or check us out on the web anytime at www.ilprinciples.org. Take care.